Hello, listeners. Yamina here. Welcome to the Dr. GPCR podcast. We are very excited to bring you a new episode of the podcast. Before we dive into this one, we have a few announcements to make. The program of the upcoming third edition of the Dr. GPCR Summit is taking shape. This year, the meeting will be held between October 10th and 16th. The meeting will be virtual so that we can allow as many participants from around the world as possible. We will host live talks, which will be hosted on Zoom from October 10th to the 15th. Everyone is welcome to participate by either listening into the talks, presenting a poster, or submitting a pre-recorded talk. We will also have prizes for trainees for their great presentations. We are also trying out a few new things. We'll host networking and poster sessions for the first time on Wonder. We will have also a full day dedicated to trainees and to trainee talks. We'll be hosting also workshops on data analysis, on how to preserve data integrity in the lab, and how to use GPCRDB. Everyone is welcome to attend. And it's free when you become a Dr. GPCR Ecosystem site member, which is also free. Speaking of the ecosystem, we are excited to share that the Dr. GPCR Ecosystem 2.0 platform is now open. Visit drgpcr.com to explore the ecosystem. The ecosystem is your GPCR-focused virtual playground. Join over 50 of your peers who have already registered as site members. You'll also have the option to select a plan once you're a site member. You'll get access to all things Dr. GPCR, including access to new podcast episodes before they even get released to the general public. You'll get access to our new group discussion and forums, our job board, and our learning center, while you'll be able to take a course or even prepare and share a course of your own with your colleagues. You'll also be able to discover GPCR companies and much more. Take advantage of everything that the new GPCR dedicated online playground has to offer today. Once you're a site member, you can also become an ambassador, which means that you'll get your own dedicated Dr. GPCR Ecosystem affiliate link. And every time someone subscribes for the year to the ecosystem, you'll get compensated. This will potentially help you offset the cost of the yearly membership. Last but not least, we're also looking for content creators. Subscribe to the ecosystem and start writing your own GPCR-focused content, share it, and show off your GPCR talents. Visit drgpcr.com to find out more about all our activities. And now, let's dive into this episode. Hello, everyone. This is Yamina from Dr. GPCR, and this morning I have the pleasure of talking to Dr. Rosie Dewaliby. She is the co-founder and CEO of GClips Biotech. Hi, Rosie.
Hi, Yamina. I'm really glad to be with you today. It's a pleasure being here and discussing all these great topics about GPCR and around GPCR.
I'm so glad to have you here with me, Rosie, as well. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know it's been a long time coming. We've been planning on scheduling this, but I'm glad we're here this morning. So why don't we start at the beginning? Would you please introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Rosie Dawaliby. I'm actually half Lebanese, half French, living in France. After a great trip around the world, I came back to France. So I started my career with a PhD at the University of Lausanne, where I started actually a bit working about or knowing a bit more about membrane proteins, membranes, and so on, because I was working on a study on membrane fusion and autophagy in yeast and mammalian cells. This was a bit my first interaction with membranes and membrane protein. And as bizarre as it can be, I really liked it. So I decided to continue there. But this time I wanted something really more pharmacological and more, let's say, in more applied way. So I decided to pursue my career with a postdoc. And I had a great opportunity, really, that came to me. It was a project that was in between the University of Brussels and Stanford University at the lab of Professor Brian Kubilka, which is really a great lab to work in as a scientist and as someone who loved GPCR. And so I continued there. I came to know more about GPCR, membrane protein, and more specifically the interaction with its environment, the membranes and lipids. And after this, I joined a small biotech in Belgium. Back then, it was a small biotech. Now it's much more bigger. So I started with them almost since the beginning, and it was on drug and antibody discovery on GPCR. I was a project and team manager, and I learned really a lot about this. And finally, I decided to put together all this and found, let's say, pull up the JClips technology, and then found JClips since 2020. And well, since it's there, it has been a great adventure. Let's hope it will continue. So as you said, I'm the CEO and founder. I have to say, in a small company as we are, we do, let's say, everything. So I'm the CEO. I can be whatever sometimes, the lab technician, cell culture technician, whatever it has to be.
Of course. Yeah, that's such a great, you mentioned that, you're half Lebanese, half French. We talked about this before we started recording, actually, last time we spoke, and we do have that in common, being half and half of different cultures.
Exactly.
And then you mentioned that, so you did your PhD at the University of Lausanne, and that's in Switzerland.
Indeed.
And then you worked, you went into to work with Brian Kubilka at Stanford in the context of an exchange from University of Brussels. So what happened there? France, Switzerland, Brussels. Can you tell us a little bit? I know Europe is small, so it's very easy, and all these universities have these connections. But how did you get from Switzerland to Belgium and then to Stanford?
Well, to be honest, Yanya, I always, let's say, followed what I dreamed of. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't matter to me if it was in Switzerland or in Africa or in Australia. To me, the most important thing was, is it what I want? And is it going to be really something where I find myself happy, mm-hmm. living happily as a scientist and as a human being, because both are really very important. And this is how actually I left Lebanon. I was like 20 years old when I left Lebanon to come to France to start my studies. So I did my master's degrees in France, and when I finished, I applied to many different PhD programs. Mm-hmm. And so I got into two of them. And I really thought, what was, I didn't have this, let's say, I didn't want to stay in one spot and discover just only one thing, because something that I'm really convinced of is that laboratories are not the same everywhere, and doing science is not the same everywhere. And the more you get to know new ways, let's say, the way the people react, the way the people think, the way the people culturally interact with you as well, the more actually you get rich, your experience got enriched. So the way I was seeing it, okay, what I really want to do, and how to do it in the best possible way. And so, I went to Switzerland and I did this PhD, was really great because the environment was great actually in Switzerland. We were on the top of a small hill, and you had this magnificent view over the Lac Léman and the Alps. But also from a scientific point of view, was really extraordinary, and we had really very good training there. As PhDs, and so PhD candidates were. So yeah, I did that. And so when I finished my PhD, as I told you, I was really thinking along with my career, what I wanted to do. And to be honest, I was not sure at that point that I wanted to continue in academia or switch. But if you want to do a switch, in all cases, you need to, let's say, have the expertise that goes along with it. So I was asking myself, if I go to industry, what do I really want to do? And the answer was more in the drug discovery field, more in pharmacology field, and so on. So I wanted something that could really help me do this smooth transition from really the PhD academia to, and I found this great opportunity. I really can, you know what, I really believe that also there's a lot of luck in our lives. And it's luck and opportunities that you need to take at the right moment. So I had this really luck. I got lucky and had this project in my hands. And so I went to Brussels and then to Stanford, to the Kabilka lab. And just to say how lucky I was, it was really during the period where we were working on this project when Brian got his Nobel Prize. So it was really great. So let's say that I lived all this experience as well with the people in the lab, with the collaborator, and so on. And yeah, it was really a great experience. And again, it helped me a lot because in Brian's lab as well, there were people from all around the world. So you get so much more knowledge about people, about cultures, and about science, about ways to do science. Again, then I came back to Belgium. Again, transitioned smoothly to a small startup that became a much bigger company, Comfort Therapeutics, working on GPCR. Where also I actually had, maybe it's on in my way of being, but I always keep, let's say, the positive things from my experiences, which helps a lot build then after on what you accumulated as knowledge and expertise.
You made so many great points. So we have to go back to these points. I really love the way you thought of, you mentioned the fact that you have to love what you do, and you followed that passion. And that's what took you from a master's in France to a PhD in Switzerland, to then a postdoc in Belgium, which led you then to Stanford and back. And it was such a great time as well to be in Brian's lab because of the Nobel Prize. And I think for the younger generation listening to this episode, it's very important to acknowledge that, there's hard work, there's luck, but there is also an openness to change.
Exactly.
And I think that's really the take-home message from one of the take-home messages from what you mentioned, is that being open to the possibility of doing something new.
Exactly. And I think one of the, for me, at least through these years, the key was my, let's say, adaptability skills from one environment to the other. I was not like becoming another person, but I adapted myself to the people and the environment that surrounded me, because this is the only way actually you can really get the best out of the others as well.
Exactly. And it's important as well to adapt, but at the same time be yourself. And I see it, and it's funny, my husband and I were having such a conversation with a friend last week, and it's about all filtering. You have all these filters, and then which filters to use, and it's a matter of, I want to say, potentially common sense or emotional intelligence, but at the same time you remain yourself.
Exactly.
And that person grows and becomes richer by being in all of these environments.
Indeed, I totally agree.
So here's my question. You before all of this happened, as a younger child or as a teenager, did you ever think about being a scientist, or what did you want to become?
Well, yeah, it was always part of me that I wanted to be something in life science. So in the beginning, it was more related to medicine, maybe. So I wanted to be really a doctor. But the thing is that I don't know how is it in other countries, but in Lebanon and here in France, you don't only have to succeed or have good grades. It's actually you have to be on the 20 or 50 top students from out of thousands to actually get to the second year of medicine, which I didn't get. So I had positioned something like 55 and they took 52 or something like that. But I think everything happens for a reason, actually, at the end. And right now, like being 40 and taking a bit a step forward and looking back on this young lady that I was back then, I think I wouldn't really have accomplished myself if I were really in medicine, because what I really like is really answer questions, really like do the experiments. Maybe I would have really turned as a doctor, but into research field and as something. But I think at the end, I think this is what I really wanted to be, what I am now.
Yeah, I think, and it's interesting because I think being a medical doctor is also kind of cultural thing.
Yeah.
Drilled into you. I want to say, my Algerian side may potentially your Lebanese side, and you tell me if I'm wrong. It's like this cultural thing. So you have to be a lawyer or a doctor, or maybe a dentist. But the dentist, I think, falls like on the third.
Exactly.
So it's doctor, lawyer, dentist. And, I did apply to medical school. I did not want to. It was more of a pressure that I felt. And I was glad that they did not accept me because I think I would have made a not so good doctor. And I'm glad that, I ended up where I did. And it's, again, about that hunger to answer questions and being able to find answers that no one else has found previously.
Exactly. I really like being on this side of the science, actually, to be the one who discovers. And then I think I really have great respect to all medical doctors. They do great work. But I think I wouldn't have been that passionate about my job as I am now if I were to do real medicine. Yeah.
Of course. And it's interesting because I do have a lot of friends who ended up, who wanted to be medical doctors, who ended up being doctors. And as you mentioned, huge respect. There are a lot of things that you can do, but when you're sick, you do need a professional, and thank God they're here.
Exactly.
But for example, one person I can think of, who she wanted to be a doctor since she was 9 years old. But her brain worked so differently. She had a different personality, than me or than us. I want to say PhDs. And it's okay.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
So when you mentioned a little bit about, when you first got introduced to membrane proteins and their environment, do you remember the first time you heard about GPCRs?
Yes, it was actually at the end of my PhD program. We had to do a review about something. Actually, we could choose anything, but it has to be related to membrane protein because the module we were taking was about membrane protein. Mm-hmm. So I it was really nice because it was one of the and I was in a biochemistry actually lab. It was one of the first crystal structure of GPCRs back then. And so I took this article and I started reading it, and I started learning about GPCRs a bit more. So when you do your let's say your the university, the masters, and so on. Of course, you hear about all the receptors and all that, but you don't get into really depth of everything. Here, I was really learning more about GPCRs, and what really impressed me is that these guys are everywhere. They do everything.
Yeah.
But actually, those are great guys. they can do everything, and they are implicated in so many different processes and physiological processes, thus also pathologies. So I was really impressed by the way they are really found everywhere. And I started a bit being a bit more curious about them, because they all share the same, let's say, more or less features. Of course, there's difference between families and so on, but let's say globally, they share a lot altogether. So I was thinking, okay, those are interesting guys, because really with so small differences, they can do so many different things. So it's really interesting to study them. And this is how actually it got into me. And this is how actually I then reoriented my career, let's say.
Into GPCRs. Yeah, well, of course, I think we all have this fascination of, wow, they're everywhere. They look pretty much the same. You know, when you look at, you mentioned holistically, when you look at them.
Exactly.
And depending on, even if you take one GPCR, you put it in a different cellular environment, it could do different things. And we know so much, but we don't know anything yet. So there is more work to be done.
There's a huge amount of work still to be done. And even on those guys that were really like the class A, that were really a lot studied and so on, there's a lot still to do. But there's also some, like, I don't know, I'm really fascinated, for instance, with the olfactory GPCRs. Mm-hmm. They're so cool.
Yeah. And they're not only in the nose, which I think is really fascinating.
Exactly. So things like that, sometimes I think, no, but there's really a really great deal of work still to do on GPCRs in general, and there's some of them that we really still don't know. So I'm not really, let's say, worried about the future of the GPCR field.
Yeah, I think that there is enough to do for a couple of more decades there, for sure. So from when you went to Brussels and you started working on GPCR, then you had this opportunity to go to Stanford into the Kabilka lab. What were your thoughts? Like, were you excited to go there? Were you afraid to go there? You know, he hadn't won the Nobel Prize then before you went, but still, it's Brian Kabilka. You know,
Brian
Kabilka. Exactly. So you know, he was still in that category of wow. How was it?
Exactly.
How was your time?
To be honest, I was really, really greatly excited. I think I was. I cannot describe. Words cannot describe how much excited I was to go there. So when he said yes, that he would like to work on this project, that we work together on this project, and so on, I got really excited, and actually I wasn't. I was actually afraid the first day I was to go to the lab, because there was this meeting that was programmed and I had to present. I really remember it very well, the project. And so they were all in the room, but and I started presenting, and he would ask me this first question, and I was like, oh, wow. Okay, so I was still introducing the thing, and it was so sharp, so straight to the point, really the exact question that needed to be asked. No, okay, that's what I'm gonna learn. And actually, in the beginning, I was a bit afraid, but then there's three things. First of all, the overall atmosphere of the lab was really nice, so it was quite pleasant to be there. Second, Professor Kabilka is a great person as a person. So I was really very well, him and his wife, Tamsun, is really a great person as well. So I was really very well received and very well welcomed in the lab. And since I was alone there, they also took really great care of me. It was very caring environment. So if I may say, the fear goes slowly, but instead what really I think comes, it's more of like I was looking at him as a role model more than it was like between exactly so which is really great actually to look at someone not treated like a boss but a role model or someone who would help you grow, which really happened. And I have to say it was greatly because of this experience in Brian's lab, but also in my lab in Brussels. I had the chance to work with two extremely brilliant scientists, Cédric Govart and Jean-Marie Royscart. I was surrounded with great scientists from both sides.
That's amazing, and then you make a great point, and I think it's worth taking a pause and pointing it out. Is that finding the right environment is crucial, and finding an environment that's supportive of your goals, of your scientific aspirations, is also very important. And do you think you were lucky to end up in a great lab in Brussels, and then having the chance to go to Brian Kobilka's lab, or how did you pick your lab in Brussels?
Well, I have to admit that it was not completely out of luck. Of course, I mean, you have to start working in a lab to know how it will be.
Yeah,
but you still can, like, let's say, have some hints that helps you choose or pick what you want, based, of course, on what is your plan. Huh? It's always good. That's always what I tell my collaborators. You always have to have a plan. Maybe you won't stick to it, but have a plan. So my plan was really to be not in a very lab with 30 plus postdoc or something. What I wanted is really to learn and grow with the lab I was in. And so Cedric had just started his lab back then. He had like 2 PhD students. I was, I think, the second postdoc he hired. And he was really young, motivated, enthusiastic. And that for me was the main, let's say, motivation, is that, first of all, the project he was suggesting were really aligned with what I wanted to do. And second, I had this, I felt this enthusiasm and motivation to go. And what was really great as well, and that you can sense since the beginning, is that the way the person would present the project, you can hear that he's thinking about the lab, himself, the career, but also about how you would evolve. And that for me was really important and interesting. And this is also how, but you have to be a little bit, you have to do a little bit of psychology.
Of course you do, yeah. You're still working with humans, so
exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah, so this is how actually I decided to choose the lab. It was because really I had this feeling that I would be in a supportive environment that would care also about me progressing.
That's phenomenal. And I think that's also very important and great advice for people to, yes, as you mentioned, it's difficult to know how the lab is unless you've worked there. But if you have a bad feeling, just move on.
Exactly.
If you have a bad feeling from the get-go, just move on.
Yeah, it can be the greatest lab in the world with so many publications and so on. But if you really live it with great difficulties, then it's gonna become a trauma and it won't help you progress.
Yeah, and you might leave the field, which again I think it's a pity, because it's such a wonderful field. And you mentioned about your experience in Brian's lab and how welcomed you felt and how great of a mentor he was. And I think it reflects out to the field, the GPCR field in general. I want to say, based on my interactions, people are very nice. People are very, helping and understanding, and really, we're a good field, basically.
Indeed, really. I mean, you can feel this need and hunger to like collaborate and work together towards something better and to improve each and everyone project, but in a win-win kind of situation. So no, really, it's really great to be in this field.
I think so too. So before we move on and talk about your favorite GPCR, so tell us, how did you live through the news of Brian getting the Nobel Prize? What did it feel like?
And you know what? It's kind of well, somehow I know that he will get it, because it's such a great progress in the field. Of course, and we cannot forget about Robert Lefkowitz, because it was shared with Robert Lefkowitz. So somehow I knew that it was a really great contribution, and somehow one day it's gonna be like a Nobel Prize. But I wasn't really expecting to be that quick and that soon. And actually, we heard the news like the day before, and the day after, I was like trying to connect with people in the lab to congratulate, of course, Brian and the whole team and so on. And then all of the sudden, it became really crazy, because you couldn't really talk to anyone. They were very solicited for a long period of time. Yeah. And but it was a really great experience, because I mean, of course, it wasn't. I mean, I don't know how to explain it, but somehow you feel proud, even though you were not really contributing to this prize, but you feel proud. Actually, you feel proud to know this person, to work with him, to contribute to the field, because it's also a prize to the field, not only to two persons. It's really a prize to the whole field.
Yeah, I think so too. And you make a great point of feeling proud as a person in the field. I remember when. So that Friday before, I think the day before it was announced, that Friday, Bob Lefkowitz was supposed to give. I was a postdoc at Rockefeller, and he was supposed to give a talk, and the news erupted, and then it was the end of the world in the best sense possible. And then it took Bob a year to come back, because we've heard it, and we were all watching the videos of they made all these documentaries when they picked up the phone and what happened and how they felt and everything. And I think it was a Nobel Prize shared by two people, but I think the entire GPCR field felt proud.
Yeah.
And then people started incorporating, whenever they went to give a talk about GPCRs into a non-GPCR crowd, they put up the two pictures, 2012 Nobel Prize chemistry, and like, we're proud of that,
No, that really was great. And it's what you were mentioning about the documentaries and so on. Well, I have never worked directly with Robert Lefkowitz, but knowing Brian and how shy he is about talking about himself, I was smiling each time I was seeing him on the documentary, because I think it wasn't that easy for him to do all this.
I think so too. And it's funny, because I've messaged people, keep telling me, why don't you get Brian on the podcast? Why don't you get Brian on the podcast? So full disclosure, I tried. He has an open invitation, and he is deciding whether he wants to do it or not. And I think mainly because of his personality, is that, he is this reserved person, which I totally respect. And if he's listening to this episode, he's always welcome whenever he's ready, whenever he wants to. And I told him, we can talk about anything you want. We don't have to talk about, we can talk GPCRs only, nothing else. But I do know, I think him and Bob are like these amazing scientists, but the polar opposites, because Bob is outgoing, he's extrovert and likes to talk, and he's really great at it. And Brian is this reserved person. I've seen him give a talk, I think it was weeks before the Nobel Prize announcement, and he's such an amazing scientist. He's such an amazing.
I think you could listen to him for hours talking about science and GPCR, and he can talk about science and GPCR for hours. But then, if you want to do this kind of podcast, maybe it's a bit more.
Yeah, it's a little bit. Which is why I told him. I said to him, you know what? We can talk about anything you want. You want to just keep it scientific, that's fine. But I think the field would love to hear him.
Yeah, indeed. I totally agree.
I've been talking to people who are in his lab, and I've been saying, okay, we've done our podcast. Can you send an email to Brian? Maybe he'll accept coming on and talking. But I respect his decision.
Of course.
But I think he's a great speaker. He's a fantastic scientist, and we all know that he's a reserved scientist, and that's fine. We're all different.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're all different. All right. So
this is funny because it reminds me the first thing he said to my other boss back then during the postdoc, when he asked, "How is it going with Rosie in the lab?" And the first thing Brian said, he said, "Well, she's really outgoing."
That's great. I think it's a compliment. And
I take it like this.
That's so funny. Okay, so do you have a favorite GPCR? Because I have to ask everybody. And the answer can be yes, no. It can be a G protein. I think with Andrew Tobin or with Graham Milligan, I can't remember, we took it to the next level. I think one of them had a favorite phosphorylation site, which I thought was really awesome.
I do have.
Take your time. No, take your time, please. Yeah, so I thought it was a good, an interesting way of approaching, a favorite something, and it can be a motif or a phosphorylation site on a GPCR.
But I have the favorite GPCR. It has to be the first one I worked on. Sorry, it's the beta-2-adrenergic receptor. It was my baby for so long. But then now I also like a lot of the chemokine receptors. But I really like them in the, let's say, in the immuno-oncology field and inflammatory field, because they are so versatile and you can do so much with them. But they are becoming my second favorite GPCRs. But I have to say that since you mentioned a phosphorylation site or this kind of motifs, I think that the cholesterol binding site on the beta-2-adrenergic receptor or anything related to lipids binding sites are also one of my favorite, because it was the first hint that we had that, well, those membranes and those lipids around the GPCR are not just there for maintaining the protein or just being there with no role. And we started understanding that they have really a critical role on the structure, function, conformation, signaling of these guys. So I have to say anything related to lipid binding sites.
I think, and you made a great point about, lipids and the lipid environment. And there is more and more publications out there showing that, the cholesterol molecules, how they influence. And I think it's such an interesting but difficult topic, because how are you going to study that? Or how are you going to measure that? And I don't think we have enough tools to measure the impact of lipids on GPCR function.
Yeah, well, this is actually how I got into, if I can say that, actually this is the bottleneck that I have sensed, the problem that I have touched when I was working at Comfort Therapeutics and previously during my postdoc, that made me think that we need actually to develop such tools or such platforms where we can actually play around with lipids and see what they do and how to have the best, really the best mimic of what happens in the human body, the physiology of it, using these lipids. And this is actually how the first thought about JClip's platform came to me. And it's really when I was really thinking about all this and how the lipids really can play a crucial role in so many different ways in these processes that I started.
I think I think you're making a good point, and which takes me to my next question. So you spent some time in Brian's lab, and then I remember in the beginning you were mentioning that you from very early on you felt like academia might not be a good option for you. Tell us a little bit more about your transition from academia to industry to Corfu Therapeutics. And it's interesting because I just recorded, I want to say maybe 2 weeks ago, my interview with Christelle Menet.
I love Christelle. She's really a great person.
She's amazing. Yeah, she's amazing. So these episodes are going to be kind of back to back. So there's a theme going on there. But like, what did you do? What were your thoughts? And how did you approach, that transition? I think it's important for people to hear that.
Sure. So when you do your PhD, I don't know how is it like in the US, but here in Europe in general, when you do your PhD, most of the time, you're kind of conditioned to continue in academia. So
here too.
Yeah,
I think everywhere.
Exactly. So actually, I feel it's really a pity because there's so many good science happening in companies, in small biotechs and startups and so on. They're really great science and really R&D science, not only just like happening in the industry. So I really feel like it's a pity. And I think this is something that I'm starting working on with the help of the University of Toulouse here. Like to give an idea, so from time to time I go and give lectures to the students in their first year of masters or second year of masters, telling them what are the possibilities, the opportunities. I'm not telling them you should do this or that, but I'm telling them, with a PhD you can do so many different things, and those are some of the things that you can do, not only continue into a postdoc and have a tenure track so just like telling the young scientists that you have so many different things that you can do after a PhD. It's already something really great to do.
Yes, I think it's getting more and more acknowledged, and I think more and more guests on the podcast as well are putting that out there and acknowledging that there is more beyond academia. And also the fact that we're not afraid to talk about, industry, because for a long time it was the dark side, if you're not going in academia, it's the dark side, you're going to industry. And there's also a lot of misconceptions, or at least maybe things were like that, but things are changing, is that you can do amazing science in industry. And it's similar to academia in the sense that you still have to find the right fit for yourself. You're still going to be working hard. You still technically could be working as many hours as you want as in academia, if that's what you're looking for. But, it's definitely changing. That being said, as you mentioned, I think similarly to Europe, Canada, and the US, universities don't spend enough money, time, effort explaining to PhDs and to masters that you're learning more than being an expert at your field. You're learning to learn. How to learn quickly, how to ask scientific questions, how to solve those questions.
Exactly.
And that's crucial. That's very important. You learn how to be organized. You learn how to find solutions to difficult
problems. To manage a project, to manage sometimes even a team. And actually, this is really my point is that I have seen so many PhDs having their diploma that when you look at their CVs, actually they are not able to pull out all the skills that they have, but like the soft skills that they have, not only the skills as technical skills or knowledge skills and so on,
Yes.
but they know so much things. They have learned so many things during their PhD, and the sad thing is that they are not aware about.
Exactly. And I think as academic scientists, and I want to take it down a notch and talk about my own experience, is that I was taught to always tone it down.
Yeah.
And not to quote unquote brag. And then the other thing that I was taught is this way of never being definitive. You know, when you're writing a paper, you say, well, our data suggests
this.
But I think when you get out of the academic portion of your life, you can say that our data show, because and then you take on and you actually show the data. And you produce the right data that gives you the answers to your questions. But at the same time, you have to keep an open mind, because you didn't do the right experiment. There is one thing that's missing, or the technology doesn't exist. But in general, you have to be proud and you have to acknowledge what you've done. You've developed a new platform, a new methodology. No one else has done it.
Exactly.
And while doing that, and I'm referring to you, you've developed leadership skills, you've developed project management skills, you've developed, you mentioned being adaptable. That's very important to fit into a team. And we've talked about, being yourself and using the different filters.
Exactly.
But that's a skill. You're not born with that.
No. Yeah.
As before we hit record, we were talking about our children, and I was mentioning at 7, you just say everything and anything in any context.
Exactly.
And, there's no filters. I get told things like I was sitting in the principal's office because I did this, because there is no filter. But by the time you finish a PhD, you learn, how to conduct a research project and what it takes, not only scientifically, but as emotionally to get there.
Exactly. Respect the timelines, work with collaborators, talk to other people about your own science. So it's really so right to your science, because I know so many PhDs that went more into scientific writing, or more into even like more legal stuff like IP and so on. So it's really it can be so many different things, and you learn so many different things that you can use. I think the key is just to take a step back and think about what you learn, not in a scientific way, but more as a person.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's not only scientific, it's also personal, and it's also something that you need time and you need to put energy and effort to learn that. And I think, to your point in the beginning, is the fact that you put yourself in situations where you have to adapt, changing labs, changing countries, changing continents, forces you out there. And it's so interesting. And this is not out of a scientific conversation, but again, we were talking the other day, and the question was about our parents who sometimes don't know how to use some tools, some electronic tools, some of these things. And the question we were asking each other was, will we be like that?
Yeah, and
I hope the answer is no. But you need to always evolve with the times. You need to have an open mind no matter what. And I think having a PhD and having gone through all those times when experiments didn't work gets you, I'm not saying that you become fearless. You feel the fear of,
but you're not afraid to go through it.
Exactly. You're just like, I have to do this, because at the end, yes, you were afraid, but you still had the courage to go through that experience, and no matter what happened, whether you succeeded with that experiment or that job interview or whatever, you have become a better or a richer person.
Yeah, indeed. I totally agree. And I really think that one of the most important features that you learn during something that you learn during your PhD is that nothing is impossible, even though nothing is working, or it's never impossible. It's of course sometimes you have to change strategy to like take another way to do something, but what I wanted to say is that you learn actually to proceed, to continue, to fight, really to fight and go wherever you want to go, because
you need to.
You need to go, exactly. Actually, you don't really have a choice.
No.
So you have to find a solution, and yeah.
Yes, and sometimes, and it's so interesting that you mentioned, the fact that the need to go and then, just ahead. Sometimes the solution is deciding that being a scientist in a biotech company or in academia is not for you.
Exactly.
And going into scientific writing or doing, becoming a lawyer in IP.
Exactly.
Whatever makes you feel happy, and when you wake up in the morning, you're like, yes, I'm going to be doing this.
But it doesn't mean that what you have lived and learned was useless, because you really had a great deal of knowledge about that. And I'm just realizing that I didn't answer your question about how I transitioned.
That's okay. I was going to get back to it, but I think this is very important, and this is great advice to people.
Exactly. So to come back to how I transitioned, actually, it was quite smooth, I have to say, because the lab I was working in Brussels was like on the same campus as Therapeutics when it was founded. And at some points, I knew, I saw the announcement that they were looking for a scientist. And of course, I went and I applied, and I actually met Toon Leermans and Christelle Monet. And the other guys of the company. They were, I think, 5 or 6 back then. And actually, to me, it was quite clear very quickly that it's what I wanted to say in the GPCR field. That was something that I knew. I wanted to be in the pharmacology. That was clear for me as well. And the thing is that going through a young startup with young people, very motivated, enthusiastic, I think by now you know the pattern that I was looking for. Each time I went from a lab to another, or from one working place to the other, I wanted to learn new things. And I think when you, it depends on what you want. Some people are really happy doing a very, let's say, guided task.
Yeah.
That they know that they have to do it like that every morning, etc. But when you work in a startup, it's a bit different, because you need to do so many different things. Because you're too small, you have too many things, and especially when it's the case here at Eclipse, and was the case by then at Therapeutics, they had a great growth very quickly. So people out there had to adapt actually as well to this great growth of the company, because it takes time actually to recruit people and to form them, and that they start being independent. So I was really blessed. I think that each time I found the right place to be, and I have learned really, really a lot at Therapeutics, more on what are the codes and the expertise skills that you need to have in a startup, in a more biotech company, that are a bit different than what you have in academia. But this helped me actually to learn actually with them how to go from here to there.
Yeah, I think you made a bunch of great points, but being in a small startup pushes you to your limits, because as you mentioned, there's not enough people. Most of the time there isn't enough money to hire enough people in the beginning, and then you need to do everything. And it's like, there is one goal, making the company successful, and who does what. You can't be like, oh, this is not on my job description, I'm not going to be doing this. But you need to have you need to have some that personality as well. So
exactly,
if and in big pharma is very different. There you might end up doing the same assay over and over and over again, depending on what the position is, and that you need to figure out what works best for yourself, for you.
Exactly. Because I know so many people that are so happy being in a big pharma where, again, they have great responsibilities, but it's indeed something that is very restrained, let's say. But I know that for me, for instance, it would have never worked, because it's not my personality. It's not how I like the things to be. So I think I had really a great luck, and I really learned a lot together with Dawn and Christelle. They were, again, I have to say I was lucky, because I had, each time I had my bosses were very, how to say that, like someone who would help you grow.
And great mentors. And I think you should give credit to yourself as well for being outgoing. I think you have this like really outgoing, pleasant personality, and then you engage with people, and then people respond to that as well, which is crucial. So let's go a little bit further out. So you're at Comfort Therapeutics. You were a scientist, team leader. When did the urge of doing your own thing, or the confidence of doing your own thing come? Like, how did that happen? Tell us a little bit more about that.
That's funny, because the urge came quite fast, actually, because working with Comfort Therapeutics, I was actually living as I said, the bottleneck that was there. And I know, I think they would have been open that I would develop this at Comfort, because we discussed it, and it was quite well received, and so on. But the thing is that at the same time as some family change, and so we needed to leave Belgium to come back to France. And so to me, it was really the point where I decided, okay, I have this idea. I know that it's a good idea. So I talked with the Comfort guys about this idea, and as I said, they were open for it. So I knew that it could be something that would be needed. So I told them, okay, it won't be possible to do it here, but I'm telling you really that I really want to do that. Would it be a problem? And they said, no, absolutely not. That it can be helpful for us and for many others. So I went with this, with my idea, with my family, came back to Toulouse. Took some time to settle into a new city. And I think what you mentioned previously about the outgoing personality, that helped me a lot, because in Toulouse, I didn't know anyone in the field, or in the, let's say, entrepreneurship environment. I really didn't know anyone. And the first thing I did is that I just went to events with startups, with incubators, with all the micro environment, or the microsystem of startups in Toulouse, and also scientific sometimes, and so on. And this is how actually I built most of I see the company as a puzzle, where you have, of course, your technical idea, but you need also to have the place where you have to be, the labs, the people who you would work with. So there's so many different, and I actually built the picture that way. So first I had my idea, then I had people who started helping me on finding a place where I can start. Then I had the incubator helping me in more, because I was a scientist, not, of course, neither a commercial or a BD or anything. So this is also something that helped a lot. And I'm not afraid actually to go and ask help. Whenever I know it's something that I don't know how to do, I would go and ask help and say, I know how to do this, but I don't know how to do this. And I would ask for people, okay, can you either teach me or help me out?
Yeah, and I think that's very important to pause on and take the time of mentioning it, is that you need to know what your limits are and understand that you cannot know everything.
Yep.
And then you need to be able to, learn it if you want to learn it. But honestly, if you want to go fast and you want to be successful, you need to find the right people to work with.
Exactly. And you cannot do everything by yourself. That's for sure.
Yes, definitely. And I think that's one of the quote unquote disadvantages, one of the things that academia doesn't teach you. Yes, we all talk in academia about collaborations, but I've been in collaborations, but those were more like pieces of work that we all did in our corner, and then we pieced it together, which you can call it as a form of collaboration. But in my mind, a true collaboration is more than that, is having fights about, no, I'm right because, and do this and do that, and have that, really specific example of having that Google Docs and have people comment and destroy what you said and not take it personally, but keep it about the goal. And the goal is to put something on the table, have a product, have a project, have a service, you name it. And to me, that's true collaboration, not what I've experienced in academia.
Exactly. No, I totally agree, because actually a collaboration is something that you build together since the beginning.
Yes.
And you're making grow together. So it's like building in the same time towards something. And sometimes you have to destroy a bit to reorganize and rebuild differently, because you feel that it's a bit shaky or a bit not what you want. But that's how a true collaboration is.
And if I can add one thing to that, I think at the end of that collaboration, or what I like to call a collaboration, you end up forging these really strong relationships where you get to know the person at a personal level, like, how they take their coffee, because, they come in with that coffee every morning, and then you get to know their families, and you really forge that relationship. And unfortunately, in my experience, the people I've collaborated with, although we worked well together, putting the separate puzzle pieces in one, it was never to that level.
Yeah. And it's a bit, to me, at least, it's a bit a pity, because you always work, as we said in the beginning, with human beings. They are scientists, but they are human beings. So you need really to know the people, the person that you are dealing with, to understand really, why is he telling me this? Why is he making this point? It's really, as I said before, it's a bit of psychology that you should have. But I think it's really important to have it.
I think so. I think it's very important as well. And, once you get to know your collaborators, just by the way they walk in that morning, you can tell, is this going to be a good or a bad day? And it's okay, because you also have a good and bad days.
Indeed. But you can adapt, this is, again, about adaptability. And this is, I see as well with our people at JClip. I know each and every one of them. I know a bit about their personal life, their families. And as you mentioned, I know in the morning when they walk in, if something happened. It's going to be a bad day. Well, I wouldn't really ask, but at the end of the day, I think they would always come to me and tell me, oh, you know what, I experienced this yesterday or something.
Exactly.
But I would, let's say, let them be like they are, because I know that the day after it would be different. And yeah, you should have a bit of distance when you work with people. It's really mandatory.
Exactly. And it happens, sometimes I'm off, sometimes others are off, and it's not, doesn't mean that we're never going to talk to each other anymore. And, it's the end of the world. It's just acknowledging and having that, baseline, I want to say confidence, but no, baseline relationship that, I'm looking for the word. It's going to come to me later, but being comfortable with that person to say, look, I'm sorry. I know I wasn't up to the task today. Something happened, whether you want to talk about it or not, but being comfortable to say to that person, you know what, this is not a good day.
Yeah, and let's revisit. But this is something that I learned really with time. I was not like that in the beginning. I was really thinking a lot and taking things personally because I didn't really understand why the people were reacting like that. But this is something that I really, let's say, started more digesting after my Kung-Fu experience. This helped me a lot, actually, because you work with collaborators, with colleagues, with so many different people and so many different aspects of things. And you learn it really slowly that it's not because the person is a bit distracted or didn't answer your question that something happened. It's just one of those days, and don't take it personally. And
Yeah, and I think being compassionate, you don't know what that person is going through.
Exactly.
No, I try to think about it when I'm driving and I see people, cut the line or do something, and I get mad for a second, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on in their life. Maybe they got a bad news. Maybe they got fired. You don't know.
Yeah.
So you wanted to cut, go. I'm not gonna honk at you and just go. All right, super. So last couple of questions. I know you have a hard stop soon. We talked a lot about, a lot of good advice to junior scientists who want to contribute to the field. Anything you feel like you would like to add?
What I would like to add is that no matter what the difficulties are that you're seeing, so sometimes we are at the bottom of a great mountain, and you look at the top and say, oh la la, it will never work. Go ahead and do it. Climb, because you'll see each time you will have people helping you, pulling you up. Sometimes people will pull you down, but continue and persevere. If it's what you want, do whatever it takes until you reach this the summit that you want. I think it's also a very personal experience, because as we talked previously, I come from a country where I have experienced a lot of things that would have maybe disencouraged me to go or to leave my country, to stop my studies, even when I was in Lebanon, and there's so many things that would have stopped me, but I didn't, and I don't regret it, because I think there's I mean, in life, if it's in science or in other things, you would always have problems and difficulties in any job in the world. So just live with it, learn to deal with it. There's something that we always say here at J-Clips, and there's no problems, there's only solutions that we didn't know about yet.
I love it. I heard someone, and I actually stole that, is that, I never have problems, I have lessons learned.
It's true. Which I thought as well. So at the end, go and fight for what you want, and the other thing is really something that I really truly, it's something that I appreciate a lot, is being open to others, open to experiences, open to everything around you.
Yep.
And everything around is positive and negative. Take the positive, leave the negative, and leave your experience at the most each time, and do not be afraid of doing a new thing, because at the end you'll see it's going to be all right.
Yeah, agreed. And I think you made a great point about that to-do list and those problems. It's never over.
No.
And my husband always
they
says
keep
that
adding up. Huh?
Yes, they do, and he always says that there are no problems where people don't live. So as long as you're a person and you're with people, there will be problems. And the other thing is that the only thing that you can control in any situation is how you react to that situation. Not what happens outside, it's how you react to that.
Yeah. And the size to your problem actually is very proportional to the way you react to it. If you give it importance, then it becomes an important problem. If you don't and try to fix it like without going all over the place, then it will stay that big.
Exactly. Totally agree with you. All right. Last but not least, top 3 aha moments you had as a scientist that shaped your trajectory. I think number 1 is reading that paper about GPCRs when you realized everything.
Exactly.
So 2 more, at least.
So that was my first aha moment. The second aha moment was actually when I first had this first question from Brian Kubicka that made me think actually for at least 2 or 3 weeks. And then I came with an answer. That was my second one, I think. And the third aha moment is when I discovered that you can do real science not in academia, actually, outside of the academia. And I was really surprised because you do really great science.
Yes, definitely. And you, and especially now, I think with having all, access to social media and access to all of these things, YouTube and stuff, you get to discover all these companies because most of these have at least a marketing team or, a science communication team, and you get to learn about these. 20 years ago, I don't think it was that obvious.
Indeed. And if I may add one last aha moment, it was when I first pitched my idea about J-Clips to the incubator, and that's it's really weird because I didn't really I don't know how to say it, but to me it was horrible that I didn't really explain it well. It was it was horrible, and they told me that it was really great, and that was aha.
Yes, and I think I can feel that. I think I'm overly critical as well, and I think a lot of us PhDs understand that feeling when you get off stage and you're like, oh my God, I forgot to say this and I wanted to say that, but actually it was pretty good.
Exactly.
So you had mentioned last time we spoke that you're growing as a company over the next couple of months, years. If and when you have job openings, where can people find you?
Yeah, so we do have a job opening right now, and the second one coming in September. So we are recruiting a business developer. So you are more than welcome to apply. So they can find it at the company website and also on LinkedIn, and on the Lean website. And you can apply on job at jclips-biotech.com. And we will have a second opening for an R&D assistant, master level, in September. So we'll be more than happy to have your CV.
Of course, that's amazing. And now with the new ecosystem, we're going to be accepting job descriptions so that we can put them in the ecosystem.
And that's great.
People can go from there. Yeah, we've been transitioning our website to the ecosystem where you can actually become a site member and then get a membership. But the whole goal is that we're going to be opening that up. So I'll reach out to you for the job descriptions and we can put them up there.
Sure. It will be a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Rosie. It was such a delight talking to you.
Yeah, you too, Yamina. Thank you very much. And it was
Thank you.
really great talking to you and discussing.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us and listening in to this Dr. GPCR podcast episode. I'd like to thank our team members, Attila Forrest, Ines Pinero, and our newest Dr. GPCR protege, Montserrat Avila Zozoya. Welcome to the team, Monse. Please subscribe to the Dr. GPCR newsletter, find us on YouTube, and if you like our podcast, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast. You can also leave us a testimonial at drgpcr.com/testimonials. Another great way to support us is to share your favorite Dr. GPCR program with your network and colleagues. Email us with any questions or suggestions at any time at hello@drgpcr.com. Until next time, stay safe.